This is our 2017 Toyota Tacoma, and for us, it's a dream realized. Built to serve as a dedicated overlanding and camping rig, its sole purpose is to allow us to travel further into the backcountry, providing us access to some of the most beautiful places imaginable.
It is hard to believe, but it has been almost 6 months since the Tacoma made its first appearance on our channel. And in that time, we've received a ton of questions from people who want to know more about this truck, want to know all the modifications and changes that have been done to take this from a stock Tacoma to what you see here today, which for Christine and I is our ideal dream version of a dedicated overlanding and camping rig. So in this video, I'm going to do exactly that. I'm going to answer all the questions we've received. I'm going to do a thorough walkthrough of the outside and the inside of this Tacoma to show you everything that's been done to take it from a basic Toyota Tacoma to what you see here today. And I want to start with the thing that we have gotten more questions on by far, which is the suspension setup. Because of course, there is a lot of added weight in this truck with just all the accessories and things that are bolted onto it, but then also with the camper on the back. So as far as suspension goes, it has Old Man Emu Nitro Charger shocks, front and rear, which are good for, I believe, about a 2-inch lift at this point. In the rear, we also have Old Man Emu Dakar leaf springs. So these are heavy leaf springs from Old Man Emu designed to carry extra weight. And then, yes, there is more, we also have airbags in the rear. Now, I don't know how incredibly necessary the airbags are with the heavy springs that are back there, but I find that putting just a few PSI in those rear airbags just helps to kind of make the ride a little bit cushier, if that makes sense. But with that said, coming from the LX470, this is not that. This is definitely a truck. It's a trucky suspension with a lot of weight on it. It does not ride great. Fine, but not great. But anyway, hope that answers the questions we've got about suspension. If you have any more though, drop them in the comments below. I guess while I'm down here, I should also talk about wheels and tires. So the wheels are from a company called AEV, which you may have heard of. They do a lot of like manufacturer stuff with General Motors and things like that. But they also do wheels. And these are the AEV Crestone wheels. Obviously, looks on wheels is highly subjective. Personally, I don't really love the look. It's what came on the truck. However, what I do love is the way that they have recessed the valve stems in here. I've never seen this on another wheel before, but it is really nice. So basically, because it's recessed in there, it means that you don't have to worry so much about the valve stem getting caught up on a rock or stick or branch or something when you're on the trail. So clearly, these wheels are designed for off-road use. So good wheels. Whether you like the look is, I guess, up to you. As far as tires go, we have my favorite tire, which is the BF Goodrich KO2. I've run these on our Lexus for the last 35,000 miles, and they've been great. I've only had one puncture, and of course it did not happen on a trail. It happened in a road construction zone, but we've been on some really rocky, gnarly trails that I was really worried we were gonna get a puncture on. Never had one with the Lexus, so I was really glad when this truck came with a brand new set of KO2s on it. Highly recommend them if you're looking for an all-terrain tire. They are a 285/70R17, which is basically a 33-inch tire. So I think that covers suspension, wheels, and tires. I suppose while I'm down here, I should also talk about some of the armor that is on this truck. So we have rock sliders from CBI. I really like these sliders because they are basically step sliders. They're flat, as you can see, whereas the ones we had on the Lexus kind of were kicked up a little bit, which was fine, but just made it a little more difficult to get in and out of the truck. So I really like these sliders, and rock sliders to me are one of the very first modifications that I would do probably after tires when it comes to protection and peace of mind on the trail. And that leads me to one of the next things that I would do, which is underneath the truck. So you can't see it from here, but I'll give you some B-roll of the skid plates that we have underneath the truck, which are also from CBI. So we've basically got full skid plates underneath, we've got rock sliders, and those are, in my personal opinion and in my experience, the two most important pieces of armor that you can have. Once you get beyond that and we start talking about bumpers and things like that, from a protection standpoint, unless you're doing really serious wheeling and rock crawling, it's probably more jewelry than anything else, but doesn't mean that it doesn't have some benefits. And Speaking of which, this is our enormous steel bumper. And I laugh a little bit because this is a big bumper in profile and in size. It sticks out pretty far from the truck. Some people love this look, some people hate this look. Personally, it took a while to warm on me, but I kind of like it. It gives off that South African or Australian expedition vehicle vibe, and I dig it. More importantly though, it is a very high quality bumper. This is from ARB, who makes some of the best bumpers in the business. And this is a fantastic bumper. It is super well engineered. It fits the truck beautifully. And probably most important, other than, yes, it provides some protection in the front. You know, if we were to hit a deer or something like that, I feel very confident that this bumper would protect the truck. But most importantly is it provides a place to mount things. And so you can see we have a Warn winch. This is a Warn Xeon 10 winch with a synthetic line and a fair lead from Factor 55. We have also ARB intensity lights. These lights are intensely bright. See what I did there? But yeah, no, they're really bright. What I love about having the lights here versus on the roof of the Lexus is when we go to use these lights, there's no glare to contend with off the hood, which is a common problem when you have lighting on the roof or on the hood with like ditch lights or something like that. So the nice thing with these is they are super bright and you don't have to contend with any glare from the hood. So I don't know if we're gonna add any more lighting to this truck. I might, but honestly, I don't think it's necessary. So we've got the bumper, we've got the winch, we've got the lights, and then I guess the only other thing of note up here is that we have a little antenna. That is the Ghost antenna from Midland, and it pairs with our radio inside the truck, which I'll show you when we get onto the inside. I think the only other thing to mention here is there is also a very beefy recovery hook, and you know it works because it's red. And I almost, maybe purposefully, forgot the snorkel, because well, it's the thing that my friends have incessantly made fun of me for since we got this truck. And look, the truck came with the snorkel. Would I get a snorkel? Well, I don't know. I don't know if I would get a snorkel, but it's not a bad thing to have, of course, if we find ourselves on any big water crossings. That is cheap insurance. But I think the more important thing with the snorkel and the bigger benefit is going to be when we're in the desert or the Southwest, or we're driving with a convoy of people and there is just dust all throughout the trail. It'll help prolong the life of our air filter. And so I guess that's an okay reason to have a snorkel. Now, before we head inside the truck, I do want to address some things under the hood. The first being, when I bought this truck, it had one massive problem, and that is the way that Toyota tuned this engine and transmission from the factory is awful. It is the worst thing about the 3rd Gen Tacoma, at least in my experience so far. And what I mean by that is the gear hunting is just insane. It's like Toyota tuned this truck to get the best fuel economy possible. And so the truck always wants to be in the highest gear, which means that when you start going up the slightest hill, or you want to pass someone, or you just press the gas, it just doesn't do anything, and it needs a downshift like 1 or 2 or even 3 times to get any power out of this truck. It is annoying. And of course it's compounded by the fact that there's a lot of weight on this truck. So I say all that to say the very first thing that I did when we got home from our cross-country trip picking up this truck is I went online and I found a tune. There's a company called Overland Taylor Tunes, and they tune these Tacomas, and there's a bunch of different tunes out there. OTT seems to be the most popular tune right now. Tons of reviews online. You can watch those if you want to go. I'm not going to do like a super deep dive on the tune, but I will say it changed the character of this truck dramatically. It is the best $500 that I think I've ever spent modifying a vehicle, because it completely eliminated the gear hunting issue for the most part. I just came up over the mountain pass and the truck will hold gear up the mountain pass just fine. It doesn't sit there and go back and forth, and it is so nice. Now, apparently the tune also increases horsepower and torque a little bit, but I don't think that's the real reason to get it. I think it's just for the performance and solving that gear hunting issue that these trucks are known for. So I wanted to point that out. The other thing I want to point out here is we do also have a single air compressor from ARB, the ARB single compressor, I should say. And this is really just what we use to air up our tires. It's nice to have onboard air, and we use that. And it's been a huge upgrade versus the portable Viair compressor that I always used with the Lexus. It's really nice to have onboard air, I must say. And then there are two final things under the hood here. On the other side, we do have an upgraded starter battery from Odyssey, and then we also have a power management system, which I'll show you when we get to the inside a little bit more, but it's from a company called S-Pod, and so you can wire up all your accessories right here under the hood, and you don't have to run a bunch of wires through the firewall, and then it all just is wired up to a touchscreen display that's in the cabin that I'll show you now. All right, so inside the truck, there's just a few things that I want to talk about in here. There's not that much to talk about, to be honest. It is still mostly stock in here. Probably the biggest change is, and I mentioned it when we had the hood up, but it's this S-Pod touchscreen, which is really, really nice. So this touchscreen controls our compressor, our lights, our winch, and our radio. And it's all wired up under there with one cable coming through the firewall, and it can all be controlled through this touchscreen. So it's nice, it's clean, it's easy. I'm a big fan of this. I'm really glad the truck came with this feature. The other thing I guess worth noting here is just how we mount our things. So we have a RAM mount for my cell phone, which I'm still using for navigation. I don't know if I'm going to upgrade the head unit. I might, but for now I'm using my phone. And then I just installed on this side a mount for our radio. So we have a permanent spot to mount our Midland MXT 275 radio, which is another thing worth mentioning. And that's just located in the passenger side footwell. And then we just plug the radio in when we need it. And when we don't, we can store it away, which is quite nice. The mounts for the cell phone and the radio are both on these little bezel mounts. Now there's different companies that make these mounts. In fact, both of these are different brands. And I'll put the name of the brand below because I can't remember it off the top of my head. But they both work really well. They just connect right up. You don't have to remove anything. They're simple, they're clean, it looks good. And I'm a big fan of these. If you have a Tacoma and you need to mount things, I think using these little bezel mounts for the air vents makes a lot of sense. As far as interior stuff outside of that, the only other thing to mention are basically the changes that we're going to make in here. And the biggest one is in the back seat, which right now we have the rear seats in there. It's just a normal back seat. But given that this is a dedicated overlanding and camping rig, we don't need to bring passengers with us. We have big plans for the back seat. I'm not gonna give everything away, but I've found a company that makes an incredible seat delete kit. And I have been working with them, hoping to get one here soon and install it because I think it is going to add so much organization and free up so much space for us. I can't wait, and I'll have a full install video on that whenever that comes to fruition. So I think that wraps up the inside. Like I said, not a lot to talk about in here. So there it is, all the modifications and changes that have been made to the Tacoma from stock to get it where it is now. If you're still watching this video, you might be saying right about now, hey dude, you actually didn't talk about the biggest modification to the entire truck, which is the camper. And there's a reason for that. I did a separate video on the camper because there's so much cool stuff. There's so much to talk about. It deserved its own video. And if you want to give that one a watch, you can check it out right here. Anyway, thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.